You are now tuned into the sounds of
Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Tuned in to Big Nate Sports Talk, the show that is on all the time, anytime. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the next big thing, the latest up-and-coming sports journalist, your host, Nathan Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony Handy, for that wonderful introduction. As always, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 377, part 2, the working hour, with myself and Brenden Potts. In this part 2, we are in week 4 of the WNBA, and we're giving our rankings. Before we get front, there's a few things I'd like to say up front. We would like to thank Mark for joining us in part 1. We had a great conversation. I think it was a really good conversation. I think that was needed to have, and Mark is really well respected in the community, and we really do appreciate what he does, and really grateful that he was able to take some time to sit down with myself and Brenden. Brenden, do you have anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, it was good to see him again. Obviously it's been a little under a year since I've seen him last, but that was a really good discussion that we had. And like you said, he's very well respected in this space, and his coverage of women's basketball, not just the WNBA but college as well. So that was a great discussion that we had. So yeah, I'm glad that Mark got to or that we got to speak with him today.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to add, I have to also painfully talk about the Washington Mystics. We're 0-9, and we've got 2 games I'm not looking forward to. It should be interesting. Please check out my content on MarylandSportsBlog.com. My internship this summer is with MarylandSportsBlog.com. I will be covering the Washington Mystics as they are on the road and home games. So please check me out on MarylandSportsBlog.com. Brenden is also on the World Exposure Report. Please check his content out. We'll also get into a little discussion after we're done with our rankings of what we're both getting into. But we know why you're here. WNBA Week 4 rankings. This has been an interesting 4 weeks, Brenden. You looking at the league right now in terms of standings, I would, given the injuries, this is not what I expected. In fairness, we do have to be it doesn't even take into consideration. Just the injuries across the board have just been bad for some teams. Example: Brittany Sykes missed her 7th straight game. Shakira Austin did not play in the loss to Connecticut and will not be playing tomorrow, as this video is being recorded. So Dallas does not have Natasha Howard or Satu Sabli. So those things, I think, we have to take into consideration. Is there anything you want to add on that before we get started?
Yeah, well, the Storm didn't have NECA yesterday with an eye injury. It was a last minute pop up on the injury report.
I
Don't
saw
know.
that. I saw that. What did we?
Oh,
What happened?
it's something in practice probably. It wasn't an issue as far as I was concerned. Until the day of the game. What the Storm typically do is they post on Twitter and they send us an email of the injury report the day before the game and or the day before every game, and it was clean. Injury report was clean in that post and in that email the day before the Phoenix game. And then they're very good at sending up to date or up to the minute injury reports before the game. So they updated the injury report, and NECA was was out or was listed out with an eye injury. What I find interesting is she was not at the arena yesterday. I went to the game yesterday, and I did not see her at all. So that's interesting. I am curious to see if this is a long-term injury. I doubt it. I bet she misses. I bet she may miss one or two more games, but not many more. Um, and then that's pretty much it. But the Storm are pretty good at playing at next player up mentality. They're pretty good at doing that so far. Um, so yeah, that's about what I would say on the injury front as far as Seattle's concerned.
Yeah, there's not really many other injuries. Brittany Griner obviously still has the toe injury. Jordan
Yeah, she
Canada.
wasn't there either. She didn't travel either.
Hmm,
Neither did Becca Gardner
yeah, and then Rebecca Allen as well.
or Becca
Usually,
Allen. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yep, yep,
Um, yeah, they didn't travel either.
yep. So this has been and again we are in an Olympic year, and I don't like the schedule. A lot of it's very front loaded. Um, so, but hey, like you gotta take the punches and you gotta keep persevering. That's the best way I can I can say it, because this schedule does not help, respectfully. Like the Mystics example, they play a back to back. I think this month, I think Las Vegas plays 8 games in 13 days. I think you guys have a similar schedule. I want to say, if I remember correctly. So
Well, we started out our season. I think every team has a back to back in their schedule, at least one.
once,
Um, so we've already had our back to back. And we played New York on the second leg of our back to back, and we played who was the first leg? The Mystics.
Mhm.
Um, so we played the first leg of a back to back, got a win, and then we played pretty hard in the second game. So it didn't really affect us that much. Um, I mean, if you consider making shots a factor in that, then I guess it did.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, I think I'm interested to see what or how we treat the rest of the schedule, because we go on a little road trip before returning home for a brief stint, and then spend a bunch of time on the road, play a couple of home games or spend a little bit of time on the road before we spend like majority of the next 2 months at home.
Yeah,
So
I hear you. All right, so we're going to get into our rankings. Brendan, let me know if you can see this.
yep.
All right, so here are our rankings. Um, we for the most part, I think we're here. with some teams. There are a couple of teams I disagree with, and where in terms of ranking, particularly that top 5. I mean, let's keep it real. They, for number 12, we agree on Washington. Right now, Washington, it's just disappointing in terms of inconsistency is the key word. I think the Washington has capable players and what they're doing. The biggest issue is finishing. The Connecticut game was a perfect example. You had a 1-point lead going into halftime, and then all of a sudden, we just I don't know. I really don't know what else I can say other than that was probably the second most disappointing game I've seen them play. Because I for 22 minutes they looked great, and then in the second half, no response. So I'm and then this schedule, we get Chicago tomorrow, Indy Friday, and then New York Sunday. Go ahead, Brenden, because I feel I'm going to say something. I'm gonna lose my mind.
I mean, I agree. I feel like Seattle experienced this last year with I think they showed a lot more strengths with their rebuilding roster than maybe you've seen with the Mystics. But they are rebuilding. They are in that this is their rebuilding stage. And although it may be painful, you gotta every game you watch, you just gotta think about the future and evaluate it that way, I guess. I mean, hey, anytime we talk about the Mystics, I'm always gonna bring up Jade Melbourne, and I love that situation. Although it's not in Seattle, she's I'm glad she's getting more and more minutes. And it kind of a player like Jade Melbourne, it kind of shows you that they've already like no offense to her or her talent, but it kind of shows that they've already like tanked the season. I think they played her like 5 games in, or they started ramping up her minutes more. And that could be because they love her. They love her as a player. But they're also like they have nothing to play for at this point.
No, I mean, honestly and truthfully, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no worries.
I just think that they really don't have. They don't really have an identity in terms of what we're doing. I think that when you look at the Mystics, I think a lot of it is they don't have the personnel. Let's just keep it real. I think that when you look at the injuries, you got to take that into consideration. They really don't have. They just don't have enough. So
Right.
Let's move on to Indiana. We agree on that, number 11. I have to give Christy sides. Actually, no, I'm gonna give you the floor on this one, Brenden. You go ahead, because I want to hear your thoughts on Indy.
So I've been they're two. It's a double-edged sword with Indiana. So, and it's something. Part of this double-edged sword is what you said to begin the show was there have been some teams that have played a lot of games in a short amount of time, and you could say Indiana you could put Indiana in that conversation because I believe they played the most games of any team this season, and that can that can take a toll on a team like Indiana with not much experience in this league. But the other side is you've got the best rookie that we've seen in a long time in Caitlin Clark, and you've got your quote unquote franchise player that you insisted that you're building around in Aaliyah Boston, and you've only squeaked out 2 wins. One of them was a 1-point win against Chicago, and you know, at first it was Christy Sides saying or not letting Caitlin Clark cook, and then on the other end it's we can't, we'll let her cook, but we're just not going to play defense. And you can have all the offensive talent in the world, but with how good of defenses there are in the W, especially at the top, you're not going to outscore everyone, and those defenses aren't going to let them outscore you, or not going to let you outscore them. So, I personally, I think, I don't know how long I'm giving Indiana until you gotta go in a different direction with Chrissy Sides. I really am like, I really have a short leash with her as the head coach, because something has to change. I've said this since like the first 3 games of the season. Something has to change with Indiana, whether it's scheme, whether it's coaching change, whatever. And scheme did change. Like Caitlin Clark was held back to start the year, and it pissed me off because we all know how great she is, but and how much she impacts winning, especially at the college level. But now the scheme has changed, but the personnel is showing that we can't play defense. So ultimately, coaching has to change next, right?
First, I think the odd person out, and shout out to the committee, and I agree with this. The odd person out in this is Kelsey Mitchell. I just don't. I think it's time for her needs to change scenery, as well as Aaliyah and the list as well. This is a mess. There's clearly no identity with Indiana. It's funny. I have to give Christy Sides the side eye, because she got on Twitter coming to the defense of Caitlin Clark, and you should come to the defense of your players, but not on social media. You don't make those comments on social media. You got to figure who your cornerstones obviously are Caitlin and Leah and Alyssa. Those 3 are your cornerstones. But you need to figure who you're tailoring the offense through. To watch them get blown out in the last game by 30 points is disgusting. And on top of that, too, you had them out there when the game was over, and they both went down with injury. Like, that's how I know as a coach, like you said, your leash is short. But more importantly, you're getting exposed. And I don't think I don't think she knows what to do with this team at this point. I think this is just a mess. I don't know what else they can do. I mean, they get at least. Timmy Fagbenley is out with a foot injury. They only have 1 game this week, so they're going to get some rest. I did also want to point this out, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brenden. So it was Grace Berger's birthday on the 3rd or the 4th. and the
Third.
team third. Thank you. And the team did something. Obviously, team bonding time, and they went out on a boat ride. I think it was, and Leah Boston took a selfie of some of the girls, and I forgot the account that made an issue about it, and was like, well, Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Smith, whoever are in the gym, that's team bonding. There's nothing wrong with that. Then there was another picture of them all together at dinner. You see what I'm talking about? It goes back to trying to create these narratives, saying like, see, instead of being on a boat, you could be in the gym. No, they there's nothing wrong with having some team bonding. It's important. On and off the basketball court. That's okay. Ay, Dios míos. All right, we're gonna go to we both said the Los Angeles Sparks. I just don't think the Sparks. I might agree with the rest of the consensus. Something about Kurt Miller and this team. It's just if you respectfully, I still think somewhat of. I just think that this team is just still lacks a true identity. Yerka Hamby, I would put her in the conversation for MVP right now. She's been playing lights out. Cameron Brink obviously should be in the consideration Rookie of the Year. She's been, outside of Yerka Hamby's been their most consistent performer. They're guards, and I think that was also going to that their guard play has just been mildly inconsistent, and I don't see it with them. Especially they've turned the ball over. I think it's 59 times so far this year. So I think they're actually on pace to tie the Sky back in 2012. I want to say. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously the Sparks have shown some promising talent. Cameron Brink's been playing well, especially as a rookie in this league. I feel like sometimes she's played like she's a veteran in this league, and just some of the ways that she's playing, and I think that's more her game translating well to the league. I like how people are stunned, or WNBA fans are stunned that she's taking and making threes from the outside, and I'm like, that's a thing that she developed in college her last year, and I said that's when she started making threes in college. I said, okay, people are in trouble now. But yeah, the Sparks outside of Brink and Hamby's been playing exceptionally well through this year. And then Lexi Brown's been pulling her weight, and Kia Nurse has been doing whatever she can to help out. They have been missing Azare Stevens for basically the year. That she hasn't played this year. So I'm curious to see when at one point of the season she comes back, because that could be a pretty good front court if you have her with Cam and Hamby. But yeah, I just don't know where to go with the Sparks. I don't know if, like, with a healthy roster, I don't know if they can be a borderline playoff team, or I don't know if they can get up to that point. I guess it just depends on how the rest of the league works out. But especially with some of the surprising teams in this league that we didn't think were going to be that good or as good as they are now, it gives a shorter leash to the Sparks in terms of how badly do you want to make the playoffs? So
I agree. The Sparks obviously this evening played the Lynx. They play Dallas on the 7th, and they have Vegas on Sunday. So should be pretty interesting. Okay, this is where Brenden and I began to start parting ways. We both agreed that Phoenix at number 9. Brenden, you go ahead. I'll give you the floor on Phoenix.
yeah, I spoke about Phoenix a little bit in our last or in our first part with Mark. I went and saw Phoenix yesterday against Seattle, and they were missing Brittany Griner yesterday, and they've been missing her for most of the season. But with Phoenix, I feel like they are a team that has a lot of offensive weapons, much like Indiana does, but they have a lot of offensive weapons, but they have zero to very little defense. And like I said earlier and in the first part, they are a team built to basically outscore you. They're gonna come out every game and say, we're just gonna score more points than you. And yeah, that's the mantra of the game, is to outscore your opponent, but they are going to win a game, or they're going to win their games scoring 108 points, while their opponent's going to score 100 or 100 and 100 or like 98 or whatever. So that's fine. That's a way to win, but when you come up against the teams that are built well defensively, example Seattle, and they play well defensively in a game, you're not gonna win. In fact, you're gonna get crushed like they did yesterday. The Storm scored 80 points, which is about average what they've done this year. But the Mercury scored 68 points, or somewhere around that range, 65. And it's because they shot horribly. Diana Taurasi played bad. Natasha Cloud played bad. And they just didn't have an answer. And with the loss of Brittany Griner, they are forced to play small. They do not have a tall rim protecting presence in the paint, which, if you look at that score, Ezzy Magwagor not coincidentally went off. And I mean, Mercedes Russell could have gone off if she had the talent of Ezzy, but Seattle just dominated in the paint that game. So they lack defense, and they lack a defensive presence with Griner. I'm interested to see what happens when she comes back and how that team changes, whether it gets better on defense or just stays the same. But right now, they are a team built to outscore you, and that is most likely not going to work when you face the top competition.
I agree. I just think that, again, this is where we talked in my introduction to injuries. I think when they're fully healthy, I think it makes a difference. Outside of that, I mean, they did have those 3 road losses were tough. The kind of game definitely stood out the most. But listen, it was in that last game against Los Angeles, the ET had 31 points. She will be turning 42 in less than 5 days. So on the 11th,
she found the fountain of youth.
So
she found it. She's keeping it hidden.
Absolutely. So their next game is actually Friday against Minnesota, and Dallas on the 9th. But 1 for 27.
I can't defend that. What do you want me to say to that?
Okay, so this is also where we were kind of, for the most part, 6 through 12 consistent with our rankings. For number 8, we both said Chicago. For me, I'll speak on Chicago. I think that this is still a young team. We got to see the debut of Camila Cordorso. Shout out to No Cap, WBB, Tyler DeLuca, Greer, and Shawnee, as they did an interview with Camila. Great stuff. Shout out to y'all. I don't see anything wrong with this guy. Just same thing with injuries. I feel like it, but unfortunately, it was kind of overshadowed what happened in the loss to Indiana. And then I still think they'll be fine. They're a young team. They're growing. They'll be fine. They do have New York already. They already played them. Washington's tomorrow. Not looking forward to that. And then Atlanta on Saturday. So I'm not going to get into the whole Angel Reese was fined for not speaking to the media. I will say that as an athlete, this is for in general, part of your job as a player, you are obliged to speak to the media. You do have a right to decline certain questions and certain answers, because we all knew they were going to ask her questions about Caitlin Clark. So I don't blame her. I'd rather be talking to G Herbo than the media. That's just me. So I'll give you the floor on Dallas.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about Dallas. They're an incomplete for me. They're because of mainly Satu being hurt. And they put out I believe they played today on Tuesday. Yeah, they played the Aces. And they only played they played 9 players. But they only played Lou Lopez and Achel 2 minutes, and then they played Jazz Shelton 9 minutes. So they don't really show any or much guard depth. I do love the second year leap from Maddie Siegrist. I thought she given her college career, I thought she should have had more first year minutes in her first year. And I'm glad that she's getting that opportunity this year. I want to see this team with Satu Sabli. I feel like the pressure has been put back on Arike until Satu comes back. And the pressure to be a number 1 option. And I feel like sometimes she thrives with that pressure, but oftentimes she folds. And I think that's why she played so well last year with Satu being the top option. I want to see Dallas with a fully healthy roster, because I feel like they have the potential to be as good as they were last year, maybe even better. But right now, it's just not there.
I did want to interject really quick. We do kind of have some interesting news as we're recording this. Michaela Onyeweide for the Chicago Sky tweeted out that the Chicago Sky are in town, and mentioned that there was somebody that harassed them, the players, as they were coming off the bus, particularly going at Chennedy, and asking had they reached out and different things like that. Isabel Harrison also said something. Breonna Turner said something. And then, interesting enough, she said, and I quote, "Interesting how the video posted was edited and didn't include when he harassed our staff while calling us ghetto B and saying women's sports ain't shit. We are not about to normalize things like that," end quote. I read it really quick. What are your thoughts on that?
There needs to be a better protection of the players in this league, and I feel like it's progressing. The protection of these players is progressing. But this is something where I need to think about what was just posted or what was just said to really form an opinion on it. So right now I don't really have an educated opinion about this, or as much as I could be. So it's just it sucks that this is happening to these players. And I'll say this one thing, because I am educated on this front. These are people. These are people. These are real people, and that's something I learned early on in school with how close I was with the student athletes that we had over there. It doesn't matter if you're a student athlete or not, whether you're a student or a professional athlete. It doesn't matter. You're a human being as much as everybody else is, and you have that same personality or ability to be a person as much as everybody else. And there are some aspects that are different, like being a professional athlete. You have to sign up for certain stuff, or certain things come with the job. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and the fact that certain people are just blatantly disrespectful to these athletes, and the staff trying to protect these athletes is just plain, it's uncalled for and plain wrong.
No, I'm in agreement. I mean, my first thought is that they're safe. They do have security, and thankfully nobody was harmed. That's my first thought. And it's the same thing is I'm going to echo your thoughts on that. I don't really have a true an educated opinion on it. My biggest focus is that the ladies are safe. That's where my focus is. But I will say, silence from others, whether you're players or media, is telling. But let's continue, because we need to kind of start breezing through these the rankings here. Number 6, I'm just going to be really quick with it. Atlanta, they went 2-1 this past week. They painfully held Las Vegas under 40% from the field, and then also beat Washington, and then lost to Connecticut, and they were held to 50 points. I would say it was pretty much. I would say it was a good week for them. I still think they struggle to find consistency. I mean, they're 10th in field goal percentage and they're 10th in offensive rating. I don't understand what even some of the moves that they made. I don't know. So they play New York tomorrow on the 6th, and they have the Chicago Sky on the 7th. So it should be interesting. Now, the top five, this is where Brenden and I really part ways in terms of the rankings here. Um, I'm going to let him explain his top five, and I'm going to explain my top five. So, Brenden, I'm going to give you the floor. You're muted, buddy.
Sorry, guys. So Vegas, I have at 5, and really like they've been playing very well. Just because I have them at 5 doesn't mean like they've been playing badly. But Vegas is Vegas, I would say, somewhat incomplete, just because they're playing fantastic, but they don't have Chelsea Gray, and some of the opponents that they've played, or some of the losses that they have, are, you know, they're not as playing as good as they could be, and that's mostly because Chelsea's been out. I feel like they could show some weakness in the front court at some point. Um, I'm not sure if that'll ever come or not, but they've been playing well, despite the loss of their star, one of their star players. Um, Asia Wilson is like we're 4 weeks in, and she's already the runaway favorite to win MVP. Like she's been playing out of her mind this year. So Vegas at 5, and then Minnesota. I think they've been the most surprising team of the league so far. They've been fantastic. They beat Seattle in their first 2 games. And the first game I saw them, and I'm like, okay, Minnesota's going to be a problem this year. And they really got better because the first couple of weeks they played without their second year player Dorka Juhas from UConn, and then they got her recently from overseas play, so they really got better. So they do have some flaws to their team. They're not a perfect team, but they do show a lot of promise, and I think Nafisha Collier has been playing at an MVP type level as well. But yeah, Minnesota at 4, and then Seattle. They I have them over Minnesota just because Seattle has probably the quietest 5-game winning streak I've ever seen from in the WNBA, and that could be because of like the headlines from the other teams like Chicago and Indiana, and so it could be because of that, but make no mistake, Seattle's won 5 in a row, and they are starting to they're starting to get it together. Ezzy Magwagor, she needs to win Defensive Player of the Year, or I will riot the Capitol. Like, she played exceptionally well yesterday in the game that I went to. And they won. The final score was 62-80, and the Storm should have won by probably 40 because they could not make a 3 to save their life. And so many times yesterday, I said they are winning this game in a blowout without Nneka Ogwumike. And Nneka just makes us that much better. She makes Jewel better. She makes Skylar better. And she makes Ezzy better. Like, she makes everybody better. And that's just what I love to see that. And Skylar too. She's been playing. She's been fantastic, and I love to see a point guard like her, a point guard in general, just ball out for our team. And then at 2, New York, they've been playing well too. They're on the verge of I believe they've won 5 in a row too. So they've been playing well. They're kind of, I feel like they kind of have a switch that they choose to turn on and off. Like one of the games where they had their off switch, or their switch was turned off was against Chicago. And I was going to point out that Chicago won't back down to anybody. So a team like Chicago, I would worry about just because they may play down to their competitions. New York does, but sometimes they don't, and they just come out and beat the crap out of their opponents, which is what they're built to do. So, but New York's playing great. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder to try and get back to the finals. So that's why I have them at 2. And then number 1 is Connecticut. They are playing like a team on a mission. They are taking last season personally, and they are built to, they're built to win, whether we saw it at the beginning of the season or not. They are built to win. They are here to win, and they are undefeated. And that's why the same reason why we spoke before the show, like the same reason why we have Washington at 12, we have Connecticut at 1, because they're undefeated. They haven't lost a game, and nobody can seem to beat them.
You have a great top 5 there, but I disagree to an extent. I agree with most of your points, but I'm looking at also too, I think how the teams have looked, schedule. You did bring up a good point about Vegas, but I'm not going to put Vegas as low as maybe 4. Respectfully, with Seattle up until maybe 2 weeks ago, when there was some chemistry issues. Again, NECA wasn't there. Skylar and Joel kind of feeding off each other. And then looking at New York, New York's now starting to play consistent basketball. I still don't trust them. Because respectfully, I mean, look at who they played. I mean, they played Indiana, 36-point win. And then I need to see what it looks like against Connecticut and Vegas, Dallas. I mean, they did. I mean, don't get me wrong. New York is a good team, but I'm not sold on it right now. Phoenix, Washington, Indy all have their struggles. I think this road trip for them, I think will be interesting to watch, especially because there's three of their 4 games are on the road. At Chicago, already played that one. Atlanta tomorrow. Connecticut Saturday, and then painfully Washington at home Sunday. So I'm not really looking forward to that one, but we'll see. But I think the New York Liberty are playing fine, but I'm keeping them right there at 4. I think Minnesota, I think Nafisa Collier should be in the MVP conversation. I also want to take this opportunity to give Alyssa Peely some love. Alyssa Peely breakout game. She gave me a 20-piece special. Yeah, that was just probably one of the best breakouts I've seen. I'm hoping they continue to ride that hot hand. Dorca's now back. Get her going in the rotation. They're fine. I think that this Lynx team is a lot better than when it was last year. But outside of that, I mean, I think a lot of it is, they're leading the league in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. The last team to actually do that, Brenden, was who?
Say it one more time.
The last team to lead the league in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage was who?
Was that not Seattle?
Very good.
There you go.
2018.
Yep.
So,
Championship year.
yes, painfully, and then Vegas. I, I'm kind of curious to see what the signing of for Tiffany Hayes means. Tiffany Hayes is a good shot creator, but she's also, I think, very underrated as a defender. Um, I would have preferred Odyssey Sims. Something tells me there's somebody that's going to sign her soon. Um, I don't know what it is specifically they saw. Um, I mean, I think Las Vegas will be fine. Um, the two losses, I'm not panicking on them. I mean, yes, aerial powers. We all know the thing with aerial powers with Jackie Young that took the momentum in Atlanta's in Atlanta's pocket. But outside of that, I mean, Asia Wilson to me is a clear runner, as you said, MVP. So I'm not worried about them. I am curious to see how the signing of Tiffany Mitchell will impact them. I still think once they get a true healthy bench, Kirsten Bell's not there, and once they get Chelsea Gray back, I think it'll make a big difference. So, yes. Connecticut, you already mentioned them. I agree. They're being number one. I think they have been looking extremely better. I like the pickup of Veronica Burton. Unfortunately, Queen and Egbo was cut today. I still believe Queen will actually get a rest of the season contract with another team. I'm holding out hope for her. I think Veronica Burton definitely is an upgrade for the guards, particularly on the defensive side. And also, too, she can create her own shot. She can also spot up as well. I like them. I like the pickup for them in Connecticut. And then look, and then also to their defense. I mean, Connecticut's defense has always been well, but I mean, forcing 22% of their opponents' possessions and the turnovers. No other defense like that. Probably goes back to the 07. I think it was Indiana Fever. So give Stephanie White credit. Alyssa Thomas should also be in the MVP conversation, just for the record. But they're looking pretty good. But that's my top five. I said Seattle at 5, New York at 4, Minnie at 3, Las Vegas at 2, Connecticut 1. Brendan's is not nothing wrong with his neither. I just disagree that how Minnesota. I mean, really, 5 through 3 are interchangeable if we're being honest. So, yes, that is our week.
I feel like with Seattle, like their defense, or I'm sorry, you mentioned their team chemistry was evident to start the season, or their lack of team chemistry, and that's understandable with a fairly new roster. But I feel like they've taken that weakness and brought back one of their strengths that they've always been good in, and that's defense. Like they've pride themselves on their defense every single year, and they just played very, very well defensively in the last 5 games where they've all won. And and that's with NECA or not. And I feel like that's kind of helped their lack of team chemistry while they develop that over the season. Now what's going to be interesting is if they what they do on the road, and they kind of develop their team chemistry on the road, because they I think like I said earlier, they play a majority of the next 2 months after a good stretch of road games. They play a majority of their schedule, or majority of the next 2 months at home.
Right.
So I feel like the potential is there. Like we've seen what every singular player on this team can do individually. So the potential is there. I just want the potential to be higher, or like the product to be finished, but it's not. It's nowhere near a finished product. One player I will shout out stuck out to me yesterday. Jordan Horston coming off the bench.
Yes.
She's turned. Shoot the ball. Shoot the ball. She's wide open on kick out threes, and she had 2 or 3 attempts where she shot a three, and one of them she made, and I thought it was a clean look from the corner. But she's passing up opportunities, whether it's to drive and kick to a post, whether it's Ezzy or Joyner, or she's passing in. She's not afraid of contact, so she's driving and trying to get to the foul line or get a bucket. But don't be afraid to shoot. She's not a primary shooter, but you can tell she wants to do that. So shoot the ball.
I agree. I also really quick, I wanted to bring up the top 5. So Las Vegas already played Dallas on the 5th. Today is the 5th. That's this is being recorded, and then they won this evening. They play Seattle on the 7th, which is Friday, and then Los Angeles.
Plays, who do you have in that game? If NECA plays, who do you think is going to win that game?
Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas and Seattle. If NECA plays,
Vegas by 4.
Okay.
It won't be a blowout.
No, the line's 10.5, and I assume that's without NECA playing. So if she plays, I feel like Seattle could win that game.
For sure. And then they also have they're actually on the road at Los Angeles on Sunday. You guys already played on the 4th. You guys play Las Vegas Friday, and you actually go on the road to Minnesota on Sunday. New York plays Atlanta tomorrow. They also play Connecticut on Saturday and Washington Sunday. That is a very brutal weekend schedule for New York and Washington. Minnesota, they played Los Angeles, and that was an interesting game this evening. They play Phoenix tomorrow and got turned right back around and play. And then Seattle on Sunday. And the only game that Connecticut Sun have is the New York Liberty, and that is on Saturday. This schedule, Brenden, is something. It is something. We're going to transition into one final thought.
Thoughts are running through my mind. Someone took some time to find a minute or two to organize.
I think it's important to once again or give Mark our thanks for taking some time to sit with me and Brenden earlier this evening. But I think it's also important. I wanted to kind of harper back some of the comments I made, and I wanted to clarify some points. When I sat there and sat here earlier, talked about holding guys like Stephen A. Smith, Charles Barkley, Pat McAfee accountable in how you use your platforms. I mean that. Ignorance showed, and I think there's also some ethics in there. There's certain things I think media has to be better in. And, when I look at what has transpired, I get it. Some people are there to see Caitlin. Others are there to see other teams, other players. But I think you do the players a disservice when you are creating narratives and saying that there's a hate when there's not a hate. You've got coaches, you've got former players, literally have been praising her, and I don't know what people want. Now you've got a former collegiate ball player, head coach Nate Lieberman, saying if that was her, she'd have punched Kenny in the face. With all due respect, I think this is the same Nate Lieberman that's been ducking smoke from the great Sheryl Swoops. And again, that's a lot of talk. I'd like to see you try it. I don't want to come across like that, but that's a lot of talk, personally, in my opinion. But also too, like if you're going to do things like that, be prepared to back it up. That's how I look at it. But I really just encourage everybody to be better in the media. You have a responsibility to the players and to the growth of the game. And, you know, some media respectfully have shown their true colors. And, you know, this is an opportunity to, as Mark said, learn, listen, and just be better. Point, period.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic that that we're having this conversation because at the beginning of the season, even before that, during media day, I got to I've said this story before, but I got to listen in on Skylar Diggins Smith and her media availability, and she said I can't remember what the question was or who asked it, but she said part of her answer was the media could be, or the media coverage could be better. And you know, they there are many ways to send out a message about a topic in the WNBA or in any sport, whether it's through social media, through writing, or through television or whatever it is. And our goal, or at least my goal, is to tell the stories of these amazing athletes. And oftentimes I've seen like, oh, it's amazing how these, or how many stories are being told, and how many and how interesting these stories are, and the ways that they're being told, whether it's from players or media outlets or whatever, but the stories are being told. And you know, nowadays it's not being told right, or it's not being you know, media personalities like Stephen A. Smith and Charles Barkley are supposed to step up and do their research, and you know, to have a formulated opinion, like we said in a similar topic, or in a different topic. We're not as, or I'm not as educated enough to give an answer. Let me get back to you on that. I gotta go get educated on this issue first. So that's basically what we have to do, as I've pointed out in the first part of this episode.
Most definitely. And I also too wanted to add, especially when you have a platform and you choose not to, you know, talk about, you know, bring awareness or bring attention to, you know, something, you know, like the W. That is a choice. And again, I just encourage everybody to just watch one game, with Chad. I give Chad Ochocinco Johnson, Chad Ochocinco, I give him a lot of respect. He went to an Atlanta Dream game, changed his perspective on the W. And I just encourage you. You don't have to go. Watch a game. I encourage you to go to a game. You know, Brenden and I have done this. He's been a fan since 2020. I started being a fan in 2013. Really when the Washington Mystics, had to rebuild, their roster, Mike Tebow coming from Connecticut and drafting Taylor Hill, with the 4th overall pick, missing out on Elena Deladon, Skylar Dinkins-Smith, and Brittany Griner. But, just seeing where this can go and just really wanting to say, like, hey, this can turn into something. And, I'm appreciative of the opportunities to get to cover the Mystics. Brenden, I know, for the Seattle Storm. I've had people, really tell me, like, we don't care about what you're talking about when it comes to league. Stop talking about it. Talk about something else. And no, I'm going to continue to talk about a sport that I love and I appreciate, what they're doing as they are progressing as a league. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunities. And more importantly, I appreciate those that are those that are in the media, as I said earlier, what they do for women's sports. Christina Williams, Monica McNutt, Tarika Foster Brasby, Megan, Megan Hall, Christy Winter Scott, Megan McPeak. The list goes on and on. There's so many people. Those are just a few, just the names. So I'm just really appreciative of what they do. Jordan Robinson, Cheryl Swoops, Cindy Brunson. The list can go on and on. So I'm just appreciative of what they do. So, yeah, man, it's. I'm ready to really try and get. I'm really hoping for this Discord to stop and let's really get into some basketball. But I know it's not going to go away because, unfortunately, this is we talked about more. We talked about this more, and now going on 5 days than some actually good storylines that have occurred in the W. So
right, like I said at the beginning of the show, that's the quietest 5-game winning streak I've ever seen Seattle go on, and same thing for New York because of all the chaos that's been happening in just in the last 2 weeks. So.
Yep. So, really quick, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude this episode of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. Brenden, what's happening on your end, on your side of the world?
Well, we've got Cameron Brink made the Team USA roster. Her and Haley Van Lith.
I saw that.
Cameron Brink, a Beaverton, Oregon product, and Haley Van Lith, a Kashmir, Washington product. So two players close to home, and who I've met personally. They're both very, very nice. But there's a media availability tomorrow for Cameron Brink, so I will be a part of that, and I will try to get a question in. Not sure if I'm gonna be able to, but I will be there nonetheless. And then we've got a busy schedule in the WNBA, so hopefully a lot of game recaps going. Hopefully to getting a couple of pieces out there talking about a couple different players. So we're getting some work done over here.
Same. MarylandSportsBlog.com. You catch my pregame and postgame recaps of the Mystics. Painfully, 0-9, as I already said. Got to talk about that. Need to make a video. I got to get that off my chest with the Mystics. I'm not looking forward to this.
Who do you think their first win's going to be against? Who do you think their first win's going to be against?
If I'm being honest, I'm not trying, and I don't want to come across as being biased. If, and it's a big if, they play Indiana.
Yeah, I was saying that too.
Because they're not beating New York. And they could beat Chicago.
Watch them beat New York. Like I said,
they could
Indiana. Like I said earlier, New York has a switch. They have the switch, and they uncontrollably turn it on and off.
Yeah.
So if they have the switch off this game, Washington could squeak out a win.
Yeah, again,
No.
if I'm being honest, they could beat Chicago tomorrow. They could. But from what I've seen, the sample size of 9 games, it's like expect the unexpected.
I don't feel good about Chicago, or I don't feel good about Chicago if I'm New York.
I agree. I definitely agree. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I will leave Brendan's Twitter in the description. These episodes will be out. They'll be going live tomorrow on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Or you can also follow me on Spotify. I actually really quick didn't want to make an update on that. We are in the process of reconfiguring all the episodes on Spotify. We're a couple seasons behind, and most recently, so we're trying to get everything uploaded on there. That way you can follow it on Spotify as well. So you can also like and share the podcast as well. But you will see us soon for week 5 of the WNBA. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Y'all have a good night. Stay up.
Thank you for tuning in to Big Nate Sports Talk. If you enjoyed that episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the next big thing, the next up-and-coming sports journalist, Big Nate Sports Talk. It's on all the time, anytime.
And I want to thank you. All I want to do is say thank you for everything you do.